Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction preview series where we look ahead to the next Arsenal fixture, break it down, look at predicted lineups, get some predictions from you guys as well. And this week, I'm joined by a guest. Hello, DR from the Back of the Nest podcast. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm well. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, mate. Of course, we did a show yesterday on your channel, which I've left a link to in the description. So, listeners, if you want to kind of hear more of what I'm talking about regarding the game, then you want to go and check out DR's video on that. But we're here to kind of focus a little bit on Palace. We're going to do the lineups as we always do in the videos, which I suppose is probably the best way to start is to throw your predicted lineup onto the screen. Before I get you to talk through it, though, tell me about Palace this season, because in yesterday's chat, you weren't particularly confident.
Yeah. Well, look, Palace in the past, we have got results against the top six, and we have been a solid side facing the bigger clubs. But it's not the same this season. This Palace side, I mean, even when we've had times when we weren't performing at the top levels, we've never lost 7-0. And we're just coming off a 7-0 loss against Liverpool, who in previous seasons were playing better football, and yet we didn't struggle as bad. There's something wrong with Palace this season. We changed our formation. And when you're looking at the league table, you might be saying, well, you're Palace, you're 13th, 14th. It does make sense. But when you're looking at the performances that we put in, some of the players that we got, and all the players that are not playing, and Roy Hodgson deciding to be stubborn, it has been a very frustrating season. And, you know, I'm looking forward to the end of the season, really. We got knocked out of the FA Cup. And there's nothing to really look forward to as a Palace fan, because the same stuff that we've been seeing over the last 2 to 3 years is happening again, but on a level that is much worse.
We chat to quite a few people from other teams on the show, and what you said there in regards to kind of like what is there to look forward to the rest of the season, it's comments like that make me go to fellow Arsenal fans and say that you really take kind of the club for granted in a way, and the fact that we've got like the Europa League and you're pushing to try and get into European places, etc., and you've got clubs such as yourselves, which if you get survival and then a cup run, that's kind of the aim at the moment. And you hope your team kind of pushes on. You hope, and you look at teams like Leicester and you go, can we achieve that same? Can we do the right recruitment? Can we sign the right players to get to a level where we can start competing and start having things to look forward to? But do you think that some fans of clubs such as Arsenal maybe do take that for granted, for sure?
I'm not too sure, you know, Tom. I feel like when you look at Arsenal as a club and where it was and where it is now, I understand the frustrations. We were talking about Arsenal potentially getting relegated about a month ago, and I was joking around on my channel that, you know, it was all banter. But when you're looking at where you win the league table, this Arsenal club has been in decline over the years. So I understand where the frustration is coming from, because I can imagine, you know, if Palace was a top club competing every year to becoming a top 4 club, just focus on the top 4, then all of a sudden you're dropping lower and lower, then I understand it. I really do understand it. So I don't think it's a reaction over the top from Arsenal fans. But I feel like majority of non-Arsenal fans do think that, but I don't understand how, because you are a top club. So you have been seeing this coming over the time.
Yeah, it's kind of a question that my missus has said to me a few times, because she's a Charlton fan. So she's very much of a mind of like, I don't know why, like you get so upset when you lose, like you could be us sitting in League One, and I'm like, yeah, but it's just different. Like it's just, it's completely the context behind each club is very different. I still think Charlton are a club that should be higher than League One, to be honest, but I'm sure you enjoy them being in League One, to be fair. But I've got a friend who's a Palace fan and gives her untold amounts of banter for that. So, but yeah, it's just, in a way, I think that sometimes Arsenal fans can lose the sight of perspective in a way. I understand that we've gone through a decline. I understand that we're at the level we're at, but there's almost a level of arrogance sometimes, I feel, around the Arsenal fan base, especially when it came. I mean, you probably saw yesterday Rob Holding signed a new deal at Arsenal. Yeah. And so many fans were like, getting gone, like this isn't a good news, this isn't a good thing. And I'm sitting there going, he's been like really good, like he's been good for us, like this is, I was saying really good, but he's been solid. And I said a 7 out of 10. He'd give you a 7 out of 10 most weeks, and he's not going to be that type. And I had a friend called Johnny Cochran on yesterday talking about how yes, it'd be great to have like a Van Dijk level signing, and Arsenal might have that in Gabriel. But Rob Holding is the Matip, is the Joe Gomez that's next to him, and he's a solid defender and just gives you a consistent output. Now, at Palace, like if you look at some of the signings that you guys have made, and we touched on this yesterday, I feel like it's starting to change a little bit with Eze coming in. I like the signing of Gaeta from Getafe. But then there's some odd ones. I mean, Klein being brought back was a weird one. Talk me through that.
Well, Klein had to come and save us, really, because we haven't really replaced Aaron Wan-Bissaka until the start of this season, really, and we brought in Nathan Ferguson, who was injured. So it wasn't really a replacement because he was going to be out for a while, and he still was out, and you're relying on Joel Ward for 2 seasons and hoping that he doesn't get injured. We've only got one right back. So Klein, he was there and he was training, so the club decided to bring him back, give him a little trial run, and he done good, and then we gave him a contract. And I'll be honest with you, he's actually been very decent, apart from the 1 or 2 games that he started at the very start when he first joined the club. He was a bit shaky, and you understand that because he hasn't really been playing football for how long now? A year or 2, like proper football week in, week out. But he's decent. I really like Kleiny, and he's going to get a contract extension at the end of this month because it was a very short-term deal, only a couple of months. And he's been brilliant for us because he can provide that attacking width as well in, going forward, putting crosses into the box, which Wardy really can't.
Talk me through your lineup and your selection. You mentioned yesterday that you thought Zaha was going to play in kind of a striking role. You were iffing and erring about whether Benteke would be back and starting. I said to you that I felt that the best way for Zaha to operate against Arsenal was from a wider position to hit us on the break and kind of maybe getting behind Hector Bellerin if need be. So talk me through your selection and why you think Hodgson's going to go for it.
Well, it's not that hard to predict Palace lineups because Hodgson's got his favourites. So I assume this will be the lineup because it's probably the strongest lineup that Hodgson thinks, which I don't think it is because the midfield is a bit weak. But in terms of Zaha, last season, we saw it, and Arsenal fans were saying it as well, Tom, that Zaha has only scored 3 goals and got 4 assists. He's not worth 70 million, 60 million pounds. And I understood the perspective you guys were coming from. But the problem is Zaha playing out wide in a Hodgson system, he's asked a lot to go back and defend. That's what he had to do. That's why the formation changed from a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2. And now Zaha up front, he's not going to be like a striker that has to stay there right next to Benteke. He will still roam. He will go on one-on-one situations with Bellerin. But it gives him more freedom to actually think about attack rather than defense. And it annoys me because we wasted a year of his career of him just going back and defending when he's not that guy. We force him to be. So Zaha up front is actually going to be, I understand what you're saying by him being better maybe out wide, but he'll still go out wide, and I think it will be more effective than he was last season against you guys.
Eze is a standout player for sure. We touched on him in your show as well. He has just come in really unknown. Like I had no idea who Eze was, and I'm still someone who really tries to look at young players more so on the continent than within England. But he has really kind of shone since actually getting the chances. He wasn't starting at the beginning of the season, but since he's been put in, he's really shining.
That's the only reliance I got. He's my hope in Palace. He is my hope. And I hope that we do keep him. It's only been a couple of months. And this guy has just come from QPR in the Championship, which some, other players can't make that step up to the Premier League. We've seen at Palace, for example, with Dwight Gale. Bring him into the Championship, he looks prime Pele. But when he comes to the Premier League, he can't score goals. I don't understand it, but not every player can do it in the Premier League. And then Eze now coming into the side, he's just been absolutely brilliant. He takes pressure off Zaha. He's a creative player, can dribble with it, skillful. I think he got released by you guys as well when he was younger, and also Millwall. So he's gone through lots of ups and downs in his career. And right now, as Palace fans, that is the one thing we're looking forward to, how Eze develops. Because honestly, it is. Some people might look at it and say, just chill. It's only been a couple of months, but in the next couple of years, this guy can be, one of the most creative players in the Premier League. I'm saying out there. I'm putting the pressure on him because I feel like he can deliver. He just got so much potential, and his IQ is just brilliant as well.
Awesome. I mean, I'll be looking forward to seeing kind of where his career moves forward. If you look at the last, you produced some good players coming through. Zaha, we talked about in yesterday's show, going off to Manchester United maybe a little bit too soon. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's now gone off to Man United. Maybe Eze will be the next big multi-million-pound deal that Palace produced. And fingers crossed you keep him for as long as possible, to be honest, and that he can keep creating it there. Let's have a look at the Arsenal side of things then. It's I think it's a fairly predictable lineup, to be honest, as to what we would go for. Martinelli's thankfully not as injured as what we first thought, and he is going to be returning to training in a few days' time, but the Palace game will certainly come too soon for him, so that will leave Aubameyang playing out on that left-hand side, we imagine, with Lacazette's form being excellent, playing up top, with Saka as the player that you talked about yesterday as kind of the one you were most scared of as the player. Emile Smith-Rowe has been an utter revelation for us since coming into the starting lineup against Chelsea, and then Xhaka, and the big kind of news is probably going to be Thomas Partey returning, which you weren't too pleased to hear was coming back.
Exactly. It's like you guys are coming back at the right time to face us, and we're at the worst because we're just coming off a game where we didn't even have a shot on target, and they lost yesterday against Everton. So clearly they're not that great defensively. And looking at this lineup right now, seeing Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe, that alone just scares me. And these are still young players. They've got so much potential to go ahead, and they're already playing so good. But Tierney is another one that worries me. It sounds weird, but this guy, what he does at left back, he is very decent. I honestly feel like him going and attacking, he provides a lot, and potentially because we're going to sit back, and hopefully we don't sit down. Yeah, exactly. We might do. But with Tierney, I feel like the runs he makes, I don't know if we're going to be able to track him back. So I'm worried about him. But you've got a solid team, honestly. I have zero hope going into this game.
Loafer Don in the chat says, Marie has done nothing to be dropped, in my opinion. Can't reward good performances with the bench. The only reason why I've put Gabriel in is partly because Marie has played so many games since Gabriel's been out. Gabriel's been out for these amount of games. It's a midweek match after playing on Saturday. That is purely the reason why I put Gabriel in, is for rotation reasons. And it's important to keep these guys as fresh as possible. But if Marie starts, it wouldn't worry me in any sense to work, because as Loafer Don says there, he has been really good for us. Bellerin on the right-hand side is an interesting one. He's got a documentary coming out soon about his ACL recovery that should be quite an interesting watch as well. See how different it was from when I ruptured my ACL, which I'm sure was very different. Is he access to all of these amazing doctors, and my hospital decided to lose my MRI scan, which was great. So it'll be very, very different. Zamir says Holding deserves a rotation, then keep the pairing the same, and that's fair enough. We've got other centre-backs we could use. Don't know if Chambers will be back fit, and the only other option there is Mustafi. So I'm kind of thinking that Holding's the better option there. Let's get a prediction from you then, Dio, and chat box. If you'd like to throw your predicted score lines into the chat box, we'll read through some of those at the end. So what are we thinking?
Thinking 2-0 Arsenal victory. I want to say 2-1, but I'll go with 2-0. I just feel like when you're looking at the formation, first of all, that you're playing, you're going to dominate us in midfield. I can already tell that with the players that you got. And I feel like defensively, Palace are not the same team that we were last season. We only scored 31 goals last season, or 32 in the Premier League in 38 games, and still stayed up comfortably. And that's because we were so solid defensively. This season, we are not the same team because of change of formation. So I'm going for 2-0 Palace. On a good day, it might be 2-1, but I'm not confident at all.
Okay, I mean, I'm also inclined to kind of go positively in Arsenal's direction. I think that the form has obviously turned for us recently. As you kind of make me feel a little more confident talking about Palace's defence, of course, as well. But as I said to you yesterday, Palace have something over Arsenal, whether it's at the Emirates, whether it's at Selhurst Park. You guys just seemingly do have this kind of banana skin about yourselves that really kind of mess us up at times and cost us points on a regular occasion. I'm still going to be positive and go 2-0, but as I said to you yesterday, 2-2 is also a scoreline that was going through my mind as a real possibility. Let's see what guys in the chat box are saying. Abe says 3-2 Arsenal. Zamir says 3-2 Arsenal. Daniel says 6-0. Lucky to score them all. Wow. Juan says 3-1 Arsenal. Russ simply asked how many goals will Arsenal win by is his question, which is very confident. Alfred says 3-1 Arsenal. Ed says 3-1. Pablo Mira says 4-1. I mean, this is very classic Arsenal overconfidence.
Yeah, I'm thinking that as well. Maybe this is good that I predicted the 2-0 defeat. I'm liking these score predictions.
Yeah, because it will look very silly if the thing is, like, I'm not as confident as I feel some of the scorelines are, because if you look at Arsenal's recent performances, you look at the West Brom game, you look at the Brighton game, and you look at the Newcastle game, at the beginning of those matches, Arsenal got off to a really slow start. If Palace come out of the blocks and are going to attack us and do hit us on the counter when they can, and we go 1-0 down, it will shake us, and we will look vulnerable to the point where I can't really see Arsenal turning around a 1-goal deficit against you guys if that in fact happened, because our mentality is still not at the top of its form right now. And I think that some of the results have maybe been a little bit flattering to us over these last few games. So the first goal is huge. If Arsenal get that first goal, Palace have got to come out and try and score the equaliser, which will open up more spaces. If you guys get that first goal, it's going to make it even more tricky for Arsenal to score. So it's going to be a really interesting tactical kind of battle between the two clubs, but it's going to be one to look forward to. So, and how are you going to be watching it with lockdown going on? Just at home, enjoying the warm inside?
Yeah, at home, at home. And to be fair, on Thursday I'm actually very busy. I've got so much work to do, so I actually don't know if I could watch this game. It's going to be like it's going to be a last minute thing. So, it might be a positive that on Thursday I've got so much work, because I don't know. I'm not confident at all. But hopefully I do get to watch it, and hopefully we do get at least a draw. I just want something to, be happy about at this point. But yeah, you guys are so confident. It's unreal.
They're a confident bunch, the TNT crew. They really are. Fair play to them. I hope it carries on in the rest of their personal lives, this confidence, because it would serve them very well. But thank you, DR, for your time, mate. Do you want to tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to on your channel side of things?
Yeah, well, you can find me at Back of the Nest or at Diocone. That's for my personal Twitter. Just be rambling on about Palace and potentially NBA as well, because that's my escape route, basketball. And then, on Back of the Nest, we've got, of course, Tom coming on for the preview, and also we've got other Palace content coming as well. So if you want to see other side of things with Palace on how bad it is, then head over to Back of the Nest.
Awesome. Thank you, mate. Really appreciate your time this afternoon. Now it is the afternoon. Thank you, Chatbox, for listening, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you drop a like on the video, I'd really appreciate it. And subscribe if you're new around here. Turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. And we'll be back straight after the game tomorrow to react raw live and get hopefully very confident. Hopefully your confidence in the chat has been rewarded, because if it hasn't, there's going to be questions. It's probably fair to say. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.